I'd like to read you a quick passage. Stop, please, for your own sake, put this book down right now. There's a very good chance you'll regret reading it, and not just due to the imminent, criminally bad jokes. You see, you'll probably never think of your running the same way again. This book's got some properly depressing stuff in it. There are some productive, positive, and helpful bits as well, but climate change is a right dick. It's really ruining things, even for us runners, and I was distraught to discover we are very much part of the problem. So you've given a really compelling argument as to why people should not read the book, but I'm interested to hear, why should people read this book?
Well, in a way, I might be, in front of the wrong audience preaching to the converted, in that if you've wasted your money to come to this, sorry, you probably already care about these sorts of things. I guess it was, I was encouraged to, I suppose, explore my own journey of the last few years of trying to work out what aspects of my running were causing harm, were causing damage, and what could be done better. And yeah, I should credit Kirsty Reid, who's skulking somewhere in the dark. I can't actually see anyone's faces. Who's a brilliant commissioning editor at Vertebrate, who really sort of pushed me to try and share, I suppose, what I'd found, I suppose. So if that seems appealing, or you want to hear the 5 or 6 terrible jokes in there, then buy it for that. Yeah, I haven't done a very good job of this, have I? Yeah.
Yeah, so just tell people, for those who haven't read it yet, kind of like how is it structured? What's the kind of journey that people would expect to go on if they picked up this book?
I think the logical place is to start with, an individual footprint, pun not intended. But yeah, there are 3 areas for a runner, really, and it's going to be your travel, your kit, and your fueling. They're going to be the 3 areas, really, that are going to cause some harm to the planet and add more greenhouse gases to the atmosphere. And obviously, we can improve as individuals in those areas, but a lot of brands and organizations can improve and make much bigger changes. So I look into those in quite a lot of, well, I'd say depressingly over-the-top detail. But there are those climate change jokes in there, so hopefully there's a nice balance. But then ultimately, the idea of a personal footprint comes from our good friends at BP. So they love the idea that we're all obsessing over our personal footprint so they can get on with doing what they do best, which isn't a very good thing. So really, the best thing, the conclusion, or the best thing, well, there's sort of 2 conclusions, but the best thing people can do really is to sort of be a little bit activist and try and nudge the system. That's more significant than, washing up your hummus pots for recycling, which I still do as well, but isn't going to lead to anything really. The other conclusion, I suppose, was that when I got pretty depressed doing it, I actually found lots of positive things towards the end, either individual runners or companies or organizations, charities, actually people doing really impressive things, and there was optimism. And in some respects, trail, fell, ultra running is leading the way in some ways, which was reassuring to find, actually. So yeah, that's the 3 to 4 minute version, or however long I spoke for just then.
Yeah, fantastic elevator pitch. And for you yourself, sort of like, what was your journey into realizing like your own personal footprint and getting to where you are now, sat on a stage with me talking about a book about environment?
Yeah, I suppose. When did it start? I guess, yeah, I've never been that politically engaged, really. But my parents are sort of, I suppose, classic hippies. I grew up without a TV and things like that. Went to a Rudolf Steiner school for a bit, didn't like it. Wanted to play football instead. And it was more my sister, actually, who was much more involved, and she was involved with Extinction Rebellion. And then it was about 3 years ago, I think late 2019, when I saw Extinction Rebellion protesters in London with this amazing pink boat just parked in the middle of the road, and I just thought, that's amazing. And I just was intrigued as to why they thought everything was so urgent when it didn't seem quite that urgent. And then you start looking into things and realize, we're meant to be reducing global emissions by 45% this decade, and we're still going up, and really, as a parent, that's pretty alarming. So I guess I started joining in the protests and felt energized by that. And then, of course, you end up looking at yourself a bit as well. And I was an athlete flying around the planet, flying to 3 to 5 races a year, posting about my new kit on Instagram, really not aware of how that wasn't such a great thing. So I started looking at, the different aspects of that. And for example, you've got me looking at my best there. 200 or so miles into Penaway, picking up litter. Like, that seemed like a logical thing to do, but I had no idea whether, how does picking up litter compare to taking a flight or chucking all your race T-shirts out, like how much damage is that? I had no idea where the sort of hierarchy was. And I was getting frustrated by all these top 10 lists, I suppose, of here are 10 things you can do to save the planet, when actually, research showed that most people think recycling, in this study, only within the last 2 years, thought recycling was the number one thing you could do to save the planet kind of thing. And it was, of the 9 options, it was the 9th most effective sort of thing. So it was exploring those things. I've actually forgotten what the question was because I've waffled on.
I was asking how you became aware of the problem, but you have.
Okay.
You haven't.
Have I answered that? Yeah. Okay. All right.
Yeah. And you tend to describe yourself as a climate hypocrite, and I sort of wonder what you mean by that.
Well, I mean, I guess what I did realise, and what probably most people in here know by now, is almost everything creates emissions, from your food, your clothes, obviously most of your transport, using your mobile phone. So you almost can't move in a day for releasing some emissions. So if you care about that stuff and speak out in some way, you'll automatically be a hypocrite. And I wasn't a massive fan of Jonathan Pye, the comedian, but he came up with this line: you're either a hypocrite or an arsehole, because you're one or the other, basically. So I think we have to, and that is why there is some research showing that sports people are potentially the most, historically apparently they're the most influential role models there are, which is a bit concerning, especially with my haircut. And yet, I saw another bit of research recently that's saying, there are 3 main reasons why sports people don't speak out, and one of them was, they're afraid of being called a hypocrite. So I think we just got to embrace that word. And I've got a book called, Why We're All Eco-Hypocrites Now. We just have to embrace that word and remove the power from it, because anyone who cares is a hypocrite, unless you live in the woods and forage for mushrooms. So yeah, I'm a climate emergency hypocrite, but I've improved my footprint as much as I realistically can, but you can only do it so much. So yeah. Yeah,
because you're right in your book. I'm a hypocrite. We all are. Once we see that, it's liberating. Waiting to be perfect can look like apathy and delay. I want to have less impact on the environment, make feasible changes, but feel less guilty for existing.
Did I write that?
You did.
It's all right.
I think if you put in some pauses in it, it makes it sound really nice as well, so I'm kind of doing it. Why do you think it's good to be honest about that kind of thing? Like, why do you think it's good to say, like, I am a climate hypocrite, or, we're not all perfect?
Well, one of the problems when you look into sort of fashion and clothing in the industry there is the sort of lack of transparency. So I think if we're going up to brands and saying you're not being transparent about where your supply chain is or how your workers are treated, then we should be transparent too. And that's why in the front of the book I sort of list my sponsors. And I don't know, that just seems the fair way to do it, Mm-hmm. And I think you can understand a company more. So I was looking at some of the race events as well. And I don't know, if you just put your hand up and say, hey, we're new to this, we're just trying to understand it, we're doing everything we can, that surely looks better than a company with no sustainability policy, with nothing there. And there are still some companies that, it's quite interesting, there's a line in there, it's quite interesting now with companies, just go on their website and can you see the word sustainability? Is there a policy? And some, still don't have that. And I think, if in doubt, tell the truth, right?
So I hope you enjoyed that short clip featuring Damian Hall. Please like and subscribe our YouTube channel. If you'd like to catch the full 1 hour length interview featuring Damian chatting about his brilliant book, We Can't Run Away From This, please click on the link in the description below. Thank you.